From the dapper outfit's mysterious resemblance to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, to his love for fixing up classic cars. My next guest is a 20-year-old. You're 20 years old, right?
Yeah, now I am. I was 19 on the show, yeah.
20-year-old American Peruvian jazz singer-songwriter and a contestant on season 28 of The Voice. Joining me to talk about that and his passion for classic music, along with affection to everything vintage related and journey so far on The Voice, is Lucas Beltran. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, let me talk about, first of all, how are you, first and foremost?
I'm doing phenomenal. I gotta say, after the show aired, I've just had such a wonderful reception and so much love has been sent my way. It makes me feel extremely, extremely appreciated, and also, the genre of music that I was singing, everything it's just been phenomenal. And I couldn't be happier right now.
Right, and obviously you sang "You'll Never Find Another Love Like Mine" from Lou Rawls.
That's right.
Tell me because let's go back in time here a little bit. Let's talk about pre-voice competition type stuff. But I want to figure out like where did this classic cars, fixing up classic cars and kind of getting into the classic music, I guess, scheme of things. Where did that come from?
Yeah, definitely. So funny enough, it's kind of separate. They don't really like have much of a correlation. I just happen to really like classic cars. And I also really love classic music. So the reason I love cars so much is previously to sort of pursuing music, I enjoyed racing cars. I was really into motorsports and all of that. And my whole life, I've just really like sort of cars and driving and going in the thrill of going fast. Um, so, as time went on, I realized that motorsports just wasn't feasible for me. Um, but I remained, that love of like cars remained. And so that's when I got into classic cars. And, I love to, you know, find them, in all different places and fix them up because I think they deserve to be brought back to their former glory. Similarly to the music that I listen to in the pandemic, I started listening to a lot of different types of music because I had so much time on my hands. Um, and well, I guess I stumbled upon sort of all the jazz music and all this big band era music and so like songs like "You'll Never Find Another Love Like Mine" by Lou Rawls. That song I had heard way back, but those are the types of songs that I heard during that time, and I just fell in love with that sound. And I figured, since I've been singing in choir, maybe I give this a shot and do it on my own. You're muted right now.
Of course, and I just want to also touch on the fact that you were talking about the pandemic and kind of where that's where your musical journey kind of began through the most uncertain of times. Um, what kind of difficulty did that give you in terms of kind of navigating around the musical uh, scenery wise? Because a lot of the times now with pandemics, it's like, you're stuck at home and you're doing everything from home and you can't be out traveling and doing gigs and stuff like that. How much did that weigh on sort of your musical journey part of things?
No, definitely. The pandemic had a huge impact on me, but also on the entire music industry. Specifically jazz music, which is, my genre that I specifically do. That is most enjoyed when you see it live, in person. And so with the pandemic not allowing us to be on stage and to sort of be close to people, it made it really difficult to go out. And, me just starting out then, it was difficult to even find anywhere to be able to like, just sing or to meet people or like be part of that community. So what I did during that time is that's when I began taking private lessons with a teacher. And I figured, I would use that time to sort of hone in my skills. But even to the lessons, I would show up with a mask on. And so it was like a little difficult, to get, to sort of develop all the technique and, like again, be part of this community. But yeah, overall, though, I think I used it as a time to sort of hone in my skills and polish.
For sure. And so you kind of went into this route of inspired by Mel Torme and Ella Fitzgerald and the greats and the legendaries of jazz music and also legendary musicians themselves in general. I can see by behind you there you have a lot of records that I see you own. Tell me more about the collection. Where does that stand from?
Yeah, definitely. So I always liked the charm of vinyls and of these records, right? And so a few years ago, it was, I believe, that Christmas of the pandemic when it first started. My parents, they gifted me a record player. And along with it, since they knew that I really loved like all these old crooners, they gifted me a record of Frank Sinatra and all of his big hits throughout his entire career. And the moment that I put that record on, I was like obsessed. I was completely obsessed with the sound and just how great it all sounded. Um, so that's when I started collecting these vinyls, and you can find them everywhere on thrift stores, online, yard sales, and it's really cool to sort of have a physical copy of the songs that I love to listen to and stream, on my phone digitally. It's really nice to have a like physical copy of it.
And for those who are listening to this episode, his collection is very much varied from different artists. In back in time, Sinatra, I see there. I see a little bit of the Bee Gees there too.
Yeah, right
Uh,
there, the Bee Gees.
I yeah, that was like I guess we both can relate on that one because that one was sort of a record that we kind of grew up on. And I have a lot of records behind me here, but a lot of people don't see it, but I have lots of Kenny Rogers and a lot of Lionel Richie records that go
Yeah,
back in time. Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Bing Crosby.
absolutely.
So those were kind of like my inspirations of why I wanted to do a podcast and why I wanted to talk about music in general.
Wonderful.
Um, and I just want to figure out this because as we talk about The Voice and sort of the stunned judges that you left on your blind audition. Tell me about that reaction from the judges and what did that mean to you trying to, well, as an artist trying to establish himself in the industry?
Yeah, that moment to me still is so like it's unreal, being on the stage in front of these amazing judges. They had so much kindness to say towards me. They were just so genuine and all of the tips and the sort of I guess well, yeah, the tips and the words that they had to say, I know it comes from a place of so much like wisdom and experience that they have because they've been in the industry for a long time. They're like you said, established. And as somebody who is trying to become established, hearing those words of like affirmation are just amazing. Um, Bublé, he is one of my big idols. He's one of the people that I've been listening to since I started to sing and since I started to fall in love with this genre. And when he said that the sound that I had was very genuine and honest, that, you know, sort of confirmed so many things, in my mind, in my head, and it made it all worth it. So, yeah, it was really like heartwarming and then like heart touching. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I want to read something here from Buble. He says, "This is my third season of this show, and we've had a couple of crooners come, and I didn't pick the people because I honestly didn't hear what I heard in your voice. I hear authenticity. At 19 years old, well, now 20, I was pretending to be a million different people. I remember working with Tony Bennett the first time and said, 'Mr. Bennett, I have stolen as much as I possibly could from you and from Frank, from Bing, and from Dean, from Bobby Darin.' And he says, 'If you steal from just one, you're nothing but a thief.' But when you steal from everybody, it's research and give a little wink. Um, Hearing that kind of come out from a guy that's been in the industry for a long time and having him be your coach, what did that mean to you to hear that type of compliment?
Yeah, it's very like incredible, Tony Bennett, again, one of my huge idols, and sort of him just saying he was casually talking with Tony Bennett, it's like it's kind of mind blowing, right? That you get to meet somebody that has talked with all these big stars that you've grown up with and love, and him sort of sharing that quote with me is special because there's a lot of truth in that quote, you know. That's something that I do. What I try to do is listen to as much music as I possibly can to get as many sounds and as many colors that I possibly can towards my voice. All these different styles, as you saw back there, I have the Bee Gees, I've got Tommy Dorsey, I've got like Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Andy Williams. All these different singers all had their own style and their own voice. And when you hear little things from each of them, and you can incorporate that into your own sound and make it your own, I believe that that is probably one of the best approaches to like creating a sound and creating a style. So yeah, it felt really good to hear that somebody that's so established thinks similarly, you know, to me, and you know, him saying that is just amazing.
Yeah, I remember also this thing where Lionel Richie said this on American Idol, and he says it to the contestants every year. He says, "We don't want you to be doing what we're doing. We don't want you to make music that we made back in those days. We want you to take those songs that we did back then and to reinvent them and make them your song, your
Mhm.
own thing." And so talking about that, I want to just get to know kind of if you were to make like a whole record and a whole like collection of music. What do you think that would sound like?
Oh yeah. Well, to me, the sound that I love most is the big band sound. You know, all the brass, all the woodwinds. I think it's just such a beautiful sound. And what's great about jazz specifically, or well, any genre, but jazz mostly, is that all, you know, if you find one song, let's say for example, a very well-known song like All of Me. Um, there are at least 10 to 15 singers that have sang that song. However, each of them have their own arrangement of that song, which is beautiful with their own band and their own sound. Some of them do it in a bossa nova feel, some of them swing it, you know? And that, to me, I think gives sort of so much room for creativity. So I'm very lucky to be working with a big band arranger who has his own sound. So, you know, when I heard his band play, I completely fell in love with like the way they were playing and the way they were sort of arranging all of these songs that I've heard a million times into something that I want to hear again, you know, because it's brand new. It may be the same title and the same lyrics, but even just the sound of the band allows me to go at it in a different approach. Sometimes even like rethinking about what the lyrics are talking about, or if I can do a melodic alteration here, or if I can do a rhythmic alteration somewhere else. So, you know, I think what my sound would like sound like, or my record would sound like, I would love for it to be big band. And I am actually working on a record right now, which, you know, I will be covering more you know, as it comes up. But I'm working on a holiday album right now, which I would be releasing later on this year with a big band. So you'll get a really good taste of what my sound will sound like when that comes out.
Now, just just to give the listeners a little bit of sort of more clarity on that holiday album, I mean, what kind of things will we hear on that record?
Yeah, so on that record, you'll probably hear, well, no, not probably, you'll definitely hear all of these classic holiday songs, as well as some that are not as well known. You know, it's not going to be like the same ones that you've heard a million times, but it'll definitely be some songs that, you know, were big in their time and unfortunately just didn't make it out of their time. And so to me, I want to bring those back and repopularize them. So that's the gist of what you'll hear on it.
For sure. And you said in your bio here that you began studying videos of great jazz vocalists, fascinated by how comfortable and relaxed they seemed on stage. Frank Sinatra, in particular, he made everything look effortless. You said, I drew inspiration from his stage presence. Now, as an artist trying to come up in the industry, um, now on The Voice, what are you trying to create for your stage presence? Are you going to do something that is going to make you stand out from the crowd? How do you try to make yourself look more authentically yourself?
Definitely. There's so many different ways that you know you can go about doing that. I think one of the big ones is your image. You know what you look like, what type of clothes you wear. You know, how you go about doing your hair, all these different things. I love fashion. I love clothing. I love doing all this. As you can see, I've got a rack full of like suits and jackets back there, which I just love styling. So to me, that's a big part of what could differentiate me, you know, especially being 20 years old. I would say the great majority of like people my age aren't really too into like button-up shirts and like oh, you know, jackets and so on and so forth. I think that that could most definitely make a comeback, you know, and that's sort of what I believe could differentiate me, you know, on stage and so on and so forth. And when it comes to stage presence, I think it's more of like a universal thing. What I strive for is to be as engaging with my audience as possible. You know, I am a messenger of the song, I'm a messenger of the lyric. And, you know, when I take a song and sing it on stage, my first step is to understand the lyrics and to really encapsulate and, you know, sort of understand what it means to me so that I can relay that to my audience, to my listener. So, you know, that's what I strive for, to sort of have that like connection with my audience, you know, especially being, you know, up front and with them, you know, as you are in jazz clubs, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think those are sort of like the variables, you know, that go into like being defined and so on.
So it definitely looks like you know who you want to be. It looks like you know who you want to be as an artist, and that's important coming out of a competition show like this and still going on here.
Thank
And you know, I think something that a lot of people wonder here is obviously the more important question is this hairstyle that you had on The Voice on your blind audition. Snoop Dogg was asking you how long it took you to do your hair, and people were saying that you look like a very similar resemblance to the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, wearing the suit and tie and something that you kind of like wore on the daily. It wasn't kind of like a one and only thing that you did on The Voice. It's like something you were kind of just I don't want to say prone, but like you often wore this type of outfits to kind of showcase you as an artist and showcase your personality on a stage.
Yeah, most
How much of that sort of plays into the musical career of yours?
yeah, like so like you mentioned, I really do enjoy wearing these clothes daily. I enjoy doing my hair every morning. It's sort of part of my routine now. Um, you know, and like I was mentioning before, image is a huge part of um, of anybody's musical career. You know, brand is what they represent. You know, how they want to be perceived by the audience, by the public. To me, that's sort of, you know, I can convey that through my clothing and through my fashion and through the things I wear. You know, this hairstyle, I'm not like trying to imitate Elvis Presley or anything. I do get that often though, and I think it's pretty cool. Like I like it. That's not a bad comparison to have, right? But it took a long time for my hair to sort of evolve to this. I used to wear my hair down, and you know, you would tell me I look like one of the Beatles. You know, it was funny because it would like be like bangs here and stuff. So it takes a long time, you know, and I think over time it'll keep evolving into something different, into something new. I'm sure my fashion sense will also be like evolving into something new. Um, so yeah, it's really something that I like take to heart because it's part of who I am, and it's also part of the music that I represent.
For sure. And I just want to wrap up here with the last question. I mean, I just wonder about your love for everything vintage. Where does that stem from?
Yeah, so when I was young, I spent a lot of time with my grandma, with my grandparents, my uncles, who were much older than I was. And they really enjoyed sort of like older music, you know, of their time. And so since I grew up around that so much, you know, I naturally also grew up with like the artifacts of that time. So artifacts, oh my gosh, like cassettes, you know, and all those I would play with them around. You know, my uncles had like vinyl collections. So I don't know, I just sort of all these vintage things. Um, I'm just it sort of reminds me of home, you know, in a way. It reminds me of home, and they all have this like charm and this warmth to them. New things are great too. I mean, there's a lot of new things in my life. For example, my computer, my microphone, my speakers, all these things, my phone. But even when I look at a watch, sort of like this one that I have, I just love the way it looks. It's so sleek and it's got this sort of more of a vintage look, smaller watches, things like that. I don't know, I've fallen in love with this sort of style that they had back then. Things were so stylized and there seemed to be a lot of thought that went into making everything, so many details here and there. So to me, that's just my bread and butter. I completely love that, and I seek that when I, look for things or styles or different, clothing, everything. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, that concludes our time together. Thanks to my guest, Lucas Beltran. For more information about Lucas Beltran's career, check out lucasbeltranmusic.com. And remember, you can find my show wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also follow me on all social media platforms. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.